think I was unemployable, if I'm completely honest.
I'll be honest, that doesn't surprise me.
Can we edit this out?
Did you learn from working those big businesses?
I learnt how not to do it. I remember Nikki coming down to the garden with Joshua and asking if there was any money in the bank account so she should go to Asda.
What would the advice from old Phil to young Phil be?
God, I'm actually going to say this on camera.
So I suppose welcome to the first ever episode of Dear Diary. Stop laughing, it's fucking not.
You're laughing though when you're saying it.
So the idea of the Dear Diaries podcast is to meet business owners, thought leaders, and people that generally know how to run a business. Unfortunately, we've got Phil today.
So you're going to bring somebody in who can do that.
So, but it's felt like the obvious place to start. So obviously, me and Phil have known each other for many years now.
Yeah.
As you can probably see by our grey hair. So we're going to start with Dear Diary. Today I started my commute to the bottom of my garden, which is a true story.
Very true story, yeah.
So what made you want to start a business, and explain that moment when you were walking down to the bottom of your garden to start the first day of, was it Northern Accountants?
It wasn't Northern Accountants then, it was a very originally named PDE Accountancy Services Limited. Put some real effort into branding and marketing and a real thought leader, I thought, at the time, but obviously not. What made me start it? Well, I think I was unemployable, if I'm completely honest.
I'll be honest, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think I'd got to a point where I'd looked at the things that I was doing at work, and I looked at the way people were operating, and I worked in some pretty big businesses, and it was so restrictive. It didn't work for me as a person. So
did you learn from working those big businesses though?
I learnt how not to do it, in my opinion, and I learnt how not to be managed and things like that, and then that realistically that it wasn't for me. So yeah, the decision was taken that I would start a company properly, because I had ran a small outsourced FD service for a number of years prior to Northern Accountants officially starting. When I left my job over in Hull, I carried on doing that on a retainer.
So in that instance, you're working for big conglomerate.
Yep.
And also doing some
bit
work
on the side.
Yeah.
And
I'm guessing that's what you enjoyed, or?
No, I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the increased income, if I'm completely truthful. And basically it evolved. So you do it for one person, they tell another person, and before you know it, you've got a business which is quite sustainable, especially alongside another full-time employment. And I was quite lucky in the role that I had, that my role wasn't demanding for probably 2 months out of 3. I worked in a global VAT team.
Right.
A lot of time flying around Europe, not doing a great deal. Which you would think would suit me quite a lot, but it didn't, and I was able to run this business alongside it, and then it came to a point where I felt that I could do more with the extra time. So that's when Northern Accountants was born properly, and we went in as an outsourced finance director, and that was in March 2008. Nikki was pregnant with Joshua, our first son. Just moved into a new house, just bought a new car. Seemed like the perfect time to start a new business. And then little did I know, 4 months later, there's a global economic crash. So it became a reality very quickly. No, I don't think it was anything to do with my financial advice. But yeah, they obviously the financial world collapsed. And that was 2008. Yeah. So yeah.
So walking down to the bottom of the garden.
Walking down to the garden, it was exciting. There was a lot of, what will this look like? What will it be? How's it going to go? And then obviously having a little bit of a client base, which could pay the bills, was a little bit of reassurance. So there was a structure to that, but there was no structure to the business. It was kind of, I would pick stuff up as and when it needed doing. So that the first thing I tried to do was to try and implement some of those structures, but that soon got waylaid with the need to go chasing new work, joining networking organisations, being dragged from pillar to post for pointless one-to-ones with people, and those things that you have to do to build up a network. Because obviously I lived in Leeds, and I didn't know the business community in Leeds. Being from Hull, I'd only ever worked in industry in Leeds, so I didn't have any connections in the SME.
Yeah, and I suppose it's safe to say that working in a business,
Yeah.
and running a business, two very different things.
You still learn that as well. When you start thinking about websites, and I think one of the longest things I ever took to sign off was my business card, which from memory had a big tree on it, and I can't remember why. It was an oak tree. And it was something to do with strength and tradition.
I knew it was going to be something ridiculous.
And it had nothing to do with me. It was the brand guy that did it. And it looked great, and I loved it. And I've still got a copy of the first business card. I actually signed and dated it, and it's in a keepsake box up in the loft. So it's completely different. Delivering somebody's accounts for somebody internally, or some management accounts, or anything like that, is so different to running an organisation that does that. So the changes are fundamental, and nobody prepares you for it, and nobody teaches you how to do it either.
So, question for you: What did you wear first day? Did you go full suit and briefcase, or?
I don't think I was a full briefcase. I won't say that. Am I allowed to say wanker on this? No.
Complete it out.
Okay. I want a full briefcase wanker.
That's staying in, by the way.
But I did used to get dressed properly for work, yeah. And I would put a shirt on and trousers, and it was very much a mindset thing. Of course, there were days when you'd wander down and you was in your dressing gown with a cup of tea and your hair's all over and things like that. But when you had no meetings, but yeah, very much was a mindset thing. Getting dressed and getting up like you was going to work, and being serious about it, I suppose.
Obviously, Northern Accountants, very different beast from day one in the bottom of the shed. 45 employees, £3 million turnover. I'm guessing that wasn't your vision on day one.
No, it wasn't.
So what did you think? What did you think that Northern Accountants could become? Hoped and dreamed about.
What did I hope and dream it would become? I just hoped it would just give me a real nice work-life balance where I earned good money. I think the target was always to be a 6-figure salary, and to have the freedom to come and go, not as much as you please, but not to have that complete strain of being tied to the corporate hamster wheel and things like that. So I suppose that's what it was really: be able to play golf a little bit more, be able to go to my kids' nativity plays and sports.
Not improve at golf, just play golf
just
more.
Play, yeah. Improvement would be nice, but yeah, just to play.
So part of the Dear Diary series is obviously about learning from real life business owners and finding out those key events that we feel that you feel have made a significant impact in either the direction of the business or just the way that you manage the business. Or if I was to ask you for maybe 2 or 3 of these events, what would you be able to kind of pick on and think actually that was a pivotal moment in the business?
The first one's easy. It was when I was flat broke in August 2010. I remember Nikki coming down to the garden with Joshua, and she was pregnant with Jack at the time, heavily pregnant with Jack at the time, and asking if there was any money in the bank account so she'd go to Asda. And that was quite a chilling and eye-opening moment. So basically it made me sit back and realise that something had to change, be it had to end, or that I had to make radical changes in the way that the business was being ran. And the business was ran very much as a traditional accountancy practice. Even though I'd never worked in an accountancy practice before, it was ran in a traditional format. So we knew we had to become a little bit innovative in the way that we worked and find different ways of doing it. So that was a major change point. On the back of that, we started to get clients to pay me by standing order. I didn't have a direct debit facility at the time, and that was just a way to stabilise cash flow to ensure that I could pay the bills, because the business was profitable enough, but the money wasn't coming in on time, and there was bits and bats, and you'd always get paid last. So that was a big change, was that I set a budget of what I needed to live on. And that's the fundamental advice that I give to people. You've got to pay yourself first, because if you don't, you'll always find an excuse. You'll make a sacrifice not to do things, or not to go that extra yard to get things done, because you want to pay everybody else first. So if you've got to pay everybody else and you've paid yourself first, you've got to get it over the line. But where with yourself, you'd probably make I won't pay myself this month, and we won't have as big an as the shop, or we won't go as far, or whatever.
This is where you decide whether you have sausages in your beans or not.
I talk about the sausage in the bean analogy quite a lot. Yeah, and that's an exaggerated story, but yeah, absolutely, it does that. So paying yourself first was fundamental.
Just for the record, I did buy sausages with beans in this week and thought about that.
They are rank, aren't they? Let's be honest. But no, so that was a major turning point, and I think The next huge turning point after we kind of stabilised cash flow was the investment in systems, and I went to a masterclass there. A good friend of mine actually spoke at there. He's actually winning our fantasy football team at the minute, Alan Woods. He spoke about the capabilities of it, of what Avian had done for him.
Too much time on his hands.
He had too much time on his hands. He's now putting that into FPL now and can't catch him. So yeah, and he talked about the impact that it had and the opportunities, and they did an offer. I remember they did an offer. You could commit for 6 months, and then at the end of the 6 months, they'd give you your money back. Completely free, no questions asked. All you had to do was tick a box. So I thought, right, that sounds a good idea. So I got an interest-free credit card with the full intention of putting the payment on the card and then claiming it back.
Exactly what's going to come
months later. And within the first proposal that I raised, the difference in the fee structure between what I would have charged without that system and the difference what I did charge paid for that 6 months fees. Wow. So it was quite a significant uplift on what I would have charged, and it gave me the tools and the confidence to do it. So having a system in place, I thought was really
something you
really
understand
pivotal.
as well. That's the other thing.
So yeah, that was pivotal for me, and it was a real moment of realization that everything needs to be systemized to take you out of it, and to ensure that it's executed efficiently and profitably.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes, obviously as an operations background, it's second nature from my point of view. It's you almost, but you forget that it's not part of people's thought process a lot of the times. No. It's the people concentrate on the execution, but not on how you're actually going to get there and deliver it. So it makes total sense for me. So
that was probably 2, and then the third one. Oh God, I'm actually going to say this on camera. Can we edit this out? So the actual third one is probably the investment in good people. And so you've now got a profitable a business that is cash flow ready. You've now got systemized processes, and then it's investing in good people. So my first hire was a 2-day-a-week apprentice. It wasn't an apprentice. He was kind of working alongside his university, and he had other jobs and things like that.
Like 35 or something.
No, he'd just come out of university. He was a young lad, and he did a great job for us for a long time. He's moved on now. I think he's come out of the profession. But I hired cheaply because that's all I could afford. And I think actually when you're looking back, if I could have changed that, and I don't think I could have done, but if I could have changed that, I would have hired better people. So probably a huge turning point was a conversation with you on the second tee at Low Laves Golf Club. When you said to me about if I ever needed an operations director. And then probably about 2 years later.
It was a long time afterwards.
2-3 years later, it kind of resonated with me that I needed to do that. And then obviously I asked you to join the team, and then, we've that was a big turning point for us because it helped us reorganise a creaking business at that time. So what's that, 2015? When did you join? 2018. So yeah, we did.
Let's be fair, after 6 months you were wondering what I did actually do.
Well, yeah, I did do that, because all of a sudden I was 100 grand worse off than I was before. It didn't seem like the greatest investment I'd ever made, but it's paid off in the end, just about. So yeah, I think hiring good people was another.
We also point out that on the second tee we were also asking where his balls went quite a significant.
Well, mine was probably just topped onto the ladies' tee, so it's highly likely.
Probably a big slice.
Yeah.
So no, the people. I know when we've talked about people as well. One of the things that we've said, it's a bit like going through the football divisions. That's the analogy that we've talked about in the past as well, isn't it? Yeah. It's you've got to sort of slowly improve, and as you get more successful, and I suppose as you get more attractive as well, it allows you to hire better and hire more and just bring different skill sets into the business. And I think so long as you're not going to get every hire right.
Nope. No, we've made our list.
But obviously, if you've got a relatively successful sort of record, I suppose it makes everybody comes in. They all bring a little bit more. They all bring a different skill set. We all learn off each other, and I think we've all improved over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's kind of proven by the retention rates of the team members as well. In the early days, I always thought we had really good retention rates for people, and I remember Nikki saying, "You've always got people starting and leaving," and And ultimately we did, and it was down to the fact that they weren't at the level that we needed them to be at, or we weren't able to support them in the right way. So, and of late, over the last couple of years, it's been much more consistent in the people that we've had working for us. We've got some great people. We've made massive investments in the development of those people, and but to be able to invest in the development of people, you need good people in place. So, the director team is now really strong. When you look across the technical abilities of that team, when you've got the likes of, I'll have to name all the directors now. So you've got Ricky, you've got Mark, you've got Colin, you've got Graham, and you've got Sean. There's some really strong technical people in, and then you've got sort of the layer below. You've got good people as well that are really helping up. And
I find as well
helping up the more junior members of the team.
Yeah, people are definitely learning off each other, and I think when you've got that team around, it creates that kind of healthy competition as well to improve and be the best version of themselves as well. I think it creates a really positive culture, I think.
Absolutely, it does, and I think we've got a nice balance of that at the moment. We've got an area of people where they want to be thought of as the best at their level within their team, but also they've got that openness and willingness to learn as well. And I think that it's a nice balance that people realise that you can't run before you can walk, and some people are walking, some people are jogging, some people are crawling, some people are sprinting. So
I think that's when
everyone's on a different journey. But I think the pathways that people like Sophie's put in place have really helped us with understanding where people are on their sort of journey. The openness in the culture and the ability to make a mistake without fear of retribution or issues or fallout. It's quite good.
Right. So advice. What do you think separates successful businesses from those that struggle?
I think open-mindedness. When I first started, it was very the traditional accountancy route. It was very rigid. It was very traditional. So I think you've got to be open-mindedness to challenge the norms. We talk about challenge the way that the industry operates all the time at board level, and just because that's the way it operates now doesn't mean that's the way it should. And we look to push the boundaries and look for innovative ways to work. So I think openness to change.
Because change doesn't come easy to a lot of people, and it's easy not to change.
It's much easier not to change. You can just keep doing what you've always done, and you'll get what you always get. But it doesn't mean that the aspiration and the hard work isn't there. You're just going to get the same outcome.
So I think one of the things that's really transformed our business is the way that we'll constantly reevaluate process, and we look for better ways of doing things. And sometimes that you've put something in place with the best will in the world, and in theory it works. It works, and it should be a benefit. But actually, 6 months down the line, you're realising there's probably a lot of inefficiencies in there, and it's not actually doing what you set out for it to do.
No, and it's being flexible. So you've got to be open, and you've got to be flexible to change, and you can't let your ego get in the way either. We have a no stripes policy on the best idea. I mean, I obviously come up with all the best ideas, but 9 times out of 10 they're changed by the people who are actually doing the job.
6 months later, after you've come out with this best idea,
6 months to be honest. I get it to concept, and someone just says no, we're not doing that. But what we've done is we've challenged the boundaries, and then what we've used is expertise in how to get there. So there's no point me sat there saying this is how you should do a bank rec, for example, because I haven't done a bank rec for a long time, but somebody within the production team has. So working together with the ideas to change things and look at things with the actual theoretical and practical side of things works really well. So
I think the other thing as well is bringing in people in that aren't necessarily part of that process or understand that. I think having that cross sort of departmental involvement is good, because people that don't understand the detail don't get dragged into groupthink, and they can ask that stupid question, and sometimes that stupid question isn't a stupid question.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's very true. And I think we ask the question why all the time, and I'm not bothered about asking the question why and looking stupid, even if I should know the answer, and I don't. If I don't know the answer, I should, so I've got to ask why. So I think that why question is a hugely important question, and not worrying about looking stupid. So you're almost taking a little bit of a risk there publicly, that you should know the answer to this, but actually you don't. But I think risk taking is another hugely pivotal role in people that are successful. I think people who take risks, and I'm not being cavalier, I'm not saying bet the horses that I'm going to bet on at Cheltenham. What I am saying is that you take
I've learned not to
don't follow me a
race.
race. Yeah, my horse ran through a fence yesterday, so don't worry about that. He's okay, but idiot. But one of those things. But I think taking calculated risks are really, really important. So looking at the situation, understanding what the risks and the rewards are, and making a decision to play that hand. So I think risk taking is fundamental, but ultimately that follows quickly on being an action taker as well. If you say you're going to do something, go ahead and do it.
So she went back, I don't even know how to do the math, 17, 18 years now. What would the advice from old Phil to young Phil be?
Play more golf. You should be much better than you are now. To be honest,
You don't know we've got actually worse, don't you?
Yeah, I know. Well, some of us have, some of us haven't. But we'll let the handicaps do the talking.
Can we edit that out?
What would I? You know what? I actually don't think I could probably give myself any advice, because everything that's happened for a reason, and that has shaped the way that we go forward. So, you could talk about have the systems in place first and hire high and things like that, but ultimately if cash flow is not available to do it, you can't do those things. So, in the perfect scenario, yes, you would have your systems in place, you'd have great people in place, your marketing would be and everything would there, but you'd never start.
No.
So in terms of going back and the advice I'd offer myself, I don't think there is a great deal. There's probably a few decisions that would go back and don't do that, because we've had some costly decisions, largely around people, and in investing in bad people. A couple of very significant incidents on those, but we've got round it. We've learned from it. It's made us stronger. I don't think there's a lot of advice. I think you've got to take your calculated risks and take action, which is what I think we have done for the last 17, 18 years. So yeah, there's not a lot of advice I could probably give myself there.
So what's next?
And I've alluded to it really. We've set our sights on becoming a top 100 firm, which is ridiculous when you think about that. They started in a shed. It kind of blows my mind to be able to sit and say it, but I genuinely believe that we can make that space, and I think we can make it relatively quickly. I think it's just on the outside of our 5-year plan, but that's just through organics. That's not without any acquisitions or anything like that. So yeah, that's where we're going. That's what we'll do, and we'll try to make some waves in that space. I think we've done it in the sub 1 million turnover. We're in a bit of a no man's land at the minute in the accountancy industry. There's not a lot of people between 1 million and 5 million, because that 1 million ceiling is a really, really difficult ceiling to break, because it requires a lot of investment and a lot of time and a big backward step. I remember when we did that. When you cross that threshold, you actually go backwards considerably, and from an owner's point of view, your income goes back considerably. And when you're enjoying a nice lifestyle with some nice money and things like that, it's difficult to do that, and not everybody's
You've
prepared
always talked
to take
about
that.
scale, haven't you?
And yeah, and scalability is so fundamental. So, and the investment in scale. I mean, we started investing. We grew rapidly in between 2012 joining AVN and you joining in just before you joined in 2017. And we grew massively, and from the outside, everything looked brilliant. We had a great brand, we had a great reputation, we had a great presence. We were well thought of in the industry, we were well thought of locally, and things.
Some significant awards in that period as well.
Yeah, we won a lot of awards, a lot of national awards, and there were some personal accolades in there as well about things that we'd done for people and the changes that we'd made to their lives. And there was some few lovely moments in there, and that's probably still one of the best things we've ever done, from a client's perspective. Is that a future podcast? It quite possibly be. But yeah, I think the growth was easy, because you could promise the world and everything, but we were creaking back in 2017. And I remember being in Portugal. I was on holiday for a few days, and I remember it's funny because it came up on LinkedIn the other day. I actually saw a picture of the pool I was stood in at the time. It was a beached pool, so it had sand in the pool. I can't really remember how it all works, but it was like a a lagoon that built into a hotel. Sounds a lot posher than it actually was. But it was now. I remember studying there, and I saw a picture of it yesterday, only over the weekend. And I remember studying there, and I was on the phone. I can't remember who was on the phone to one of the guys that were here at the time. And it was like, this is really creaking. And I came home early from that holiday, and it was new we had to rip it up. Because we were creaking so bad, and we were built to grow but not built to scale, and that was the big turning point, which I alluded to earlier about bringing you in from an operational point of view, was to build that and make it so it was scalable. And we spent a lot of time doing that. You know, you look at 2018, probably through to 2020.
I'd say later than that, really. It was.
We did a couple of acquisitions, didn't we? We
went through two big system changes as well.
So yeah, and then then we started to significantly grow in 2021 onwards. I mean, COVID was a huge growth time for us, and again, that's because we took a risk. We put out some ridiculously poor videos of trying to interpret the advice from Boris Johnson, whatever gibberish that he spoke. I then regurgitated the next morning. But yeah, and that helped us because it helped build our brand and it helped build our awareness of us and things like that. So
you're still famous from that now, are you?
Some people say I had to get collared about that. I've seen your COVID videos. It's like, okay, brilliant, thanks. It's not embarrassing at all. But that's why we needed a professional in. So yeah, but we were built to scale, and now, we continue to build to scale. You know, we've revamped the onboarding process this year. We put an onboarding team in, which is unusual in the accountancy profession. We've actually put one in, and then we've gone in and gone, actually, that's not working the way it should, and we've ripped it to pieces, literally ripped it to pieces and starting again. And there's a lot of work goes into these sort of things, which nobody really,
I know.
Nobody really appreciates how much work is involved in it. But what it does is it helps to streamline that process. I think at one point we had 50 odd jobs waiting to go through the onboarding process, and we haven't changed the stream of work going into it, and we're now running at sub 10, and they're moving out so quickly and efficiently, and they're moving on, and the whole relationship is so much better. So yeah, one
of the key things about that is obviously the process is brilliant, but you had a big impact in the mindset. Near enough is good enough, because then we've got a strong enough team to be able to take it on and finish that off. And I think that kind of mindset thing about having to put something on that was absolutely belts and braces and perfect.
Yeah, well, it's version 1 is better than version none, and a minimal viable product they're all fundamentals to move things forward. And that, I go back to that action taking. We could have sat and waited, but and we'd never have got there, because ultimately you'll never test it in a live environment. You can run whatever test
you actually say that quite a lot, don't you? The version 1's better than version none.
Absolutely, yeah.
I suppose it marries up with the risk taking, like you say. Let's take the risk and let's get as far forward, because you might as well find out it's not going to work on version 1.
Yeah.
Then
they invested fortune in it and get to version 10 and it's never been released. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think version 1 better than version none is a fundamental sort of philosophy within NA.
Well, thank you for chatting, Phil. I suppose we need to shake hands, don't we?
That's probably do.
Not long as the equipment. Next time we'll be on the road talking to another real life business owner and finding out about their journey. If you liked the podcast, which I hope you did, you can like, subscribe and hit the notification bell.